does everyone see the slideshow on the full screen?
Yes, we do.
That right? Okay. 31st Street Swing Left's plan. I want to just talk very briefly about my background. I am a lawyer by training and a digital consultant by necessity. If you would have told me 10 years ago I would be doing this, I would have told you you were nuts. But as Julie referred, life changed for me in November of 2016 and could never be the same again. And all of my energies have been devoted to undoing what happened when Trump was elected and using my skills and my training as an attorney and an advocate to have the most impact that I could. My roots are in the grassroots, and I think that's why I enjoy talking to you all so much. I met Jim Shelton in 31st Street. We would meet weekly in a church basement in the spring of 2017, before the blue wave was a twinkle in anybody's eye. And Jim and I shared this common feeling that our caucus was focusing on flipping just 5 seats, and we felt that we needed to go big or go home. There were 17 districts that had a white male Republican sitting in that Hillary Clinton had won. And Jim and I were of the mindset that our job was to let the caucus have the easy 5 ones, and we were going to focus on getting the help to the 6 through 17. A little bit just about my work. So I have been working the last 4 cycles in 5 states with over 135 candidates for state legislature. I've helped elect 50 progressive candidates. I've helped flip 39 seats from red to blue, and flip 2 chambers, and also bust 2 supermajorities, including North Carolina's, where I worked in 2018. I want to just now have a little jumping off point. Hopefully many of you had a chance to look at the digital primer that gives a little digital 101. So I'm not going to go into a lot of that, but I do want to tell you that this phrase that I used, a lawyer by training, a digital consultant by necessity, where this came from. When I started working in Virginia 2017 to help these state leg candidates, Virginia was the only game in town, the only chance we had a full chamber up to send a message to Trump. And I started meeting these incredible candidates who were running, and the magic word, as Congressman Sarbanes used, was authenticity. They were incredibly authentic, and I fell in love with them the moment I met them, and I knew voters would too. But the downside of their authenticity and being real people was they never thought they were going to run for political office, so they had 0 name ID. So the question was, how could I capture them so that people would fall in love with them, but push it out on a scale that would allow us to reach the many, many thousands of voters we needed to reach. So digital to me seemed like that opportunity to not only capture authenticity, but to amplify their stories and names. And so I sort of became set on, we've got to get videos for all these people. And that was kind of my mission in 2017. Not going to go into this at all in deep, but I want you to understand why, in addition to the authenticity and amplification, digital is, I think, such a great tool. Number one, it's precise. You know, most media vendors, whether it's TV, they are spending money on a video that gets broadcast. I call it carpet bombing. You know, you get Republicans, you get people who aren't old enough to vote, you get people who are outside the district because it's by metropolitan market. Digital allows us to target our messaging. Every single dollar we spend is only trying to reach a voter we want to reach. It's also much cheaper, way, a fraction of the cost of TV. It's also active. People can share and like and repost, and so that's a really cool feature. It can move the meter, as I'll explain to you later. And then perhaps my most favorite thing, which is the word I'm using every day now, is that it's nimble. You can on a dime. If late money comes in, you can make use of it immediately. We stay up on digital till election day. If some, Republican hit job comes in the last 2 weeks of the election, it's too late for mailers, it's too late for TV, we can get something up within a day on digital, produce it, no problem. The other thing is we're living in a digital world. US adults are spending an average of 6 hours a day with digital media. 73% US adults use YouTube, 69% use Facebook. The number one axiom of campaigning is meet your voters where they are, and even pre-pandemic where they were on their devices, now even more so. The other thing that really made me the champion of this was the fact that Republicans seem to have figured this out, but yet Democrats weren't. And so I always love to show this chart to people, and it's on the website, but if you look in 2016, Madison Avenue was spending 54% of its ad buy budget on digital. Trump, who rode Facebook to the White House, spent 44% of his ad buys on digital, and Democrats, meanwhile, were spending 7%. I would like to be able to tell you that this has narrowed in the meantime, but Mitch McConnell tells all of the people in the Republican caucus they must spend 40% on digital. For the most part, I'm still seeing Democrats maybe spending 20%, and that's even a push there. So I had this vision that what I wanted to do was to create a model that would allow us to drive down the costs of making the video, which would be the film shoot itself, and then also the production of the video, and then maximize the dollars to actually going to push the ad out. And I'll give you a quick analogy. When I was doing a lot of this work in 2017, 2018, working with different organizations who were creatives in the industry who wanted to give of their time, it was wonderful. They were, giving video for free. The problem was there was no plan for how are we going to actually push these ads out? Are we going to help the candidates figure out how to put it on Facebook, how to put it on their website? And my analogy was that it felt like giving a Mercedes to someone who didn't know how to drive. It looks lovely in the driveway, but I can't take it out for a spin. And so really, what was the point? So as I emerged from 2018, had my mind set that I wanted to offer turnkey assistance to state legislature candidates who lacked the resources and the bandwidth to run effective digital campaigns. So I had been focused in 2018 on sort of creating a scalable model that would minimize the cost of a film shoot, minimize the cost to produce each video, and then also have plans and guidance on actually pushing out and targeting the messaging. So Virginia 2019 was kind of where I tested this model out. I started my own LLC and became an approved vendor to Virginia House candidates, many of whom I'd worked with in 2017 and wanted to work with me again. But I also quickly figured out that that wasn't going to be enough. When I started talking to candidates and campaigns and hearing what percentage of budget was going to go to digital, it became apparent to me that we weren't going to have what we needed to get the job done and to complete the 2-cycle flip of Virginia. So that's when I created a PAC called Virginia Matters. And the goal of the PAC, which is now Our States Matter, was to raise funds to bridge this gap that I saw, that I felt if somebody didn't step in to bridge was going to be a real problem. So created these two.
Can I make
created these two entities to work in parallel tracks. And really just, I take a field of approach, I call it, the work that I do, which is if you build it, they will come. And so this time last year, I really had no money in my PAC. And I connected with 31st Street and said, I have an idea. If you guys can help me raise $10,000 to do a film shoot in June, we're going to have all of our candidates under one roof. I really believe I can do a ton with this. And so we did have that film shoot. We did it in a hotel in Virginia. We set up a green screen. And you see a little photo up top there of what it looks like. I want to tell you a little bit about what happens during a film shoot, at least the kind of film shoots that I do. Again, harkening back to that authenticity factor that Congressman Sarbanes talked about. I do not believe in doing scripted ads. I think the worst thing I can do is take a real person and stick them behind a desk with a script. That just defeats the entire purpose. So I do a documentary style interview with my candidates where I literally sit right next to the camera and the candidate and I have a discussion. I view this in so many ways as the gift that keeps on giving, and I want you to understand that it's much more than a film shoot. The first piece of it is media training. For most of our state leg candidates, this is the first and only media training they will ever get during the campaign. And so I'm able to coach them, as they're talking about issues and I'm asking questions, not just about how they appear on video, but, about the content of their answers or their energy or what, where they're emphasizing things. So this is something that has been I've just been thanked so much by the candidates that I work with in terms of how I'm able to help them in that area. There's also the aspect of drawing out narratives. And a lot of these folks who are running for office don't have the perspective to even step out and see what their narrative and their story is. And I want to just give you an example of how that works. A candidate who is on the slate, Donna Lake, who's running for Senate in North Carolina. She's this incredible woman who, in addition to being an Air Force colonel and CEO of military hospitals and earning 2 Bronze Stars, having spent combat time in Kosovo, Iraq, Afghanistan, just an incredible woman, but also had a very challenging upbringing in terms of her family simply not having money and her father dying young. And she started working as a nurse's aide when she was 14 years old. Her college counselors told her she was not going to college. She would be lucky to be a secretary. And she said, no, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to get a nursing degree. But she has this very rags to riches story, but her accomplishments, sometimes I think there's so much focus on what she's done that I was encouraging her to channel back to her roots a little bit. And we talked about the difference between sympathy and empathy. And she obviously is running because she's so sympathetic to the plight of others, which is genuine and comes across. But we talked more about her channeling into her ability to have empathy, her ability to know what it means like for your family not to be able to put food on the table, to have your father dying at a young age and your mother, in charge of the rest of the family. And so that's an example. We also talked about how, when she described this incredible career to me, I said, God, it almost sounds like a step down for you to be running for state senate. Like, you're too qualified for this job. And she talked about how at this moment, this is what she feels called to do. And so I talked with her about how this is really a metaphor for her whole life, that she has literally dropped herself into war zones, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, when the soldiers came back from Somalia after the chopper went down. She was the one who put them on the planes to go where they would be cared for. I said, this has been your mission in life, to literally, drop into war zones and escort people to a place of safety and healing. And isn't that just a metaphor for this running for office right now and this existential crisis that we face? And it took her back. And she was like, I really never thought about it that way. So that's what I mean by drawing out narratives. We're making candidates better. Some of them know the ins and outs of the issues, and quite frankly, some of them don't. And so if I'm talking with someone about Medicaid expansion in North Carolina and they don't know that it's 500,000 people would get health care, $6 billion that would be saved, I go over those numbers with them. And if I have to hold up a clipboard in front of my face for them to recite them, that's what we do, because part of my job with the video is to not only share their story, but to credentialize them as candidates. The other advantage of what I do with documentary style is I'm not looking to just make one ad that we script. I'm looking to when I have that camera going, I want to get as much lightning in the bottle as I can. So I ask questions on the whole range of issues, and within those range of issues, the permutations of the issues. So like healthcare isn't just healthcare, it's pre-existing conditions, prescription drug prices. And then also within each of those issues, because I am a digital vendor and I know that we can then take content and target it to different audiences, I don't want to make a one-size-fits-all message. I don't have to, because I can target individually. So within each of those issues, thinking, okay, my candidate is going to need to win unaffiliated voters. This messaging will appeal more to them than that messaging. I'll get it for the liberal groups that I'm just trying to, make sure they turn out and check her box. But for the folks I need to persuade, I need to get the message in a little different way. So I'm going to have her go through those points as well. And what this yields is a reservoir of footage. We did this shoot in Virginia last year. We had footage in June that lasted us till election day. We made as many as 6-7 ads for candidates. And again, we're talking about the ability to be nimble. And when something pops in November that we hadn't expected, 9 times out of 10, we go to our footage and we have it, we can cut an ad. So the next step that we did once we had the film shoot, we sort of call it hustle in the tank, and we persuaded one of our candidates to pay us the $2,000 to actually make one of these ads to be a prototype. We did. It was fabulous. It caught on like fire. And we had many, many more candidates now come to us and say, wow, you've provided us with the film shoot for free. Can you make us an ad on X, Y, and Z? And so we proceeded with that. We partnered up with other organizations who could provide those ad buys to push the ads out. And we kept our ear to the ground and we stayed nimble. So one example of this would be in mid-October when our candidates were in some tied races. Nancy Guy, you see here, we were able to go to Nancy in mid-October and say, Nancy, we know you can't take any time off the campaign trail. We know you're in a dead heat race. What piece of content would help you move the meter the most? And she told us. We went back to our June footage. We had it, rolled it out. Nancy won by 41 votes. And she flat out has told both 31st Street and me she could not have done it without us. So I want to show you an example of an ad that we made in Virginia that is of the style we would like to make with funds we can hopefully raise today for a shoot in North Carolina. This is Karen Mallard. This gives you another example of how we can be nimble. We went to Karen in mid-October when she was tied and she had no video, and we said, Karen, we've raised money to make a video for you. What will move the meter? Her campaign manager said, we've been running a really negative campaign and we're getting a lot of blowback about that. We've never told her story, which I think was a mistake. But we need a positive story, we need a positive bio video that's going to tell her story and tie into her role as an educator. We went back to our June footage, found exactly what we needed, and here's the ad that we cut.
I grew up in Wise County. I am the daughter and granddaughter of a coal miner. When I told my dad that I wanted to become a teacher, he was like, maybe you could teach this old man to read. And my dad was the first person I taught to read. He was my first student. Education lifted our family out of poverty to prosperity. And my running for this office is the next step in that, because I want to make sure that every child, no matter the zip code, has a quality public school education.
So that's Karen Mallard.
I grew up.
Okay. Next point is just that this footage is the gift that keeps on giving. From that $10,000 that 31st Street helped me raise, we generated more than 30 ads from that footage throughout the course of the campaign. As you all know, we held 10 vulnerable seats, flipped 5 more, and got our blue trifecta in Virginia, which led to amazing things. I have a metrics. If someone's interested, just shout out and I'll send it to you. But just so you know, these ads that we were able to produce were seen by close to 1 million people. And if anyone wants to get into those specifics, just know that I have them and I'm happy to share. So now we switch to North Carolina, and I'm going to try and talk fast because I'm sure I'm out of time. Investing in digital now, again, it's this gift that keeps on giving. Our plan for North Carolina is we're taking that Virginia model and we are supersizing it. Instead of, I called it fueling up while we fly in Virginia, we have it wired. The only thing that stops us from doing what we want to do now is not having the funds. We've road tested it. Everything that I personally have done since November in 2016 has been to prepare for 2020 and be done with the testing and say, let's go, hit start, we're ready. Why North Carolina? Well, I worked in North Carolina in 2018, and as you just saw from Terry, I mean, they just have incredible Democrats there who really this whole Trumpism thing, this all started in North Carolina way ahead of what we saw with Trump. And they have been battling back since, and they've had a long view plan, and they have people that are really committed. The other reason is because I personally, at the beginning of every election cycle, ask myself, how can I be most impactful with my skill set this cycle? And for me, in 2018, I went to 6 different states and made gazillions of videos. I decided I wasn't going to do that this time. I decided the model of Virginia, where I focused myself on the ground in one state and focused all my resources and all my impact on the heavy lift of this 2-cycle flip, was the better play. So when I look at, okay, which state am I going to pick? North Carolina was a no-brainer. In addition to knowing that they have the great structure in place there in the party, I want to have up-ticket impact. And so we've got a presidential battleground state there. We've got Tom Tillis's seat, which is one of the most vulnerable US Senate seats that we must flip if we're going to have a chance. And now we've got Richard Burr in trouble, who he may have to resign. We may have 2 Senate seats. So I see investing there as just the most potential to have the most impact in 2020. I know that if we invest now, like we did in Virginia, we will have this footage from now till election day. Quite frankly, I'm also concerned with the pandemic that others are not going to get in and get footage. And if this may be it, this may be all anyone has, making it even more important. And I know that if we build it, they will come. Very quickly, I am working on the vendor side as well. I'm one of 2 approved vendors in North Carolina for the House caucus, so I'm assigned to theoretically 60 races in North Carolina. I might as well live in North Carolina because I'm eating, breathing, and sleeping it the same way I did Virginia. My days are filled with phone calls with all of these campaigns on a weekly basis. We are using the downtime to plot out what our path to victory is in each one of these unique jigsaw puzzles of a district. I guess I just want to convey to you all, I know what needs to be done. I've done it. I'm ready to do it. I wish I could tell you that the party is going to be 100% on board and they're going to give us all the funds we need, but I can't. They're great partners, but for example, right now, we need to have our people up on digital. There's nothing else they can do. Usually these candidates' strongest suit is their ability to knock doors and win people over. They can't do it. They can't hold events. They can't hold fundraisers. So they also need to raise as much money as they can before June 30th, which is the next filing deadline. So they can't spend money. And I 100% get that. And I don't want them to spend money. That's why I created this PAC, because this PAC can step in and say, we know you can't spend money. We know this needs to be done. We know how to do it cheaper than anybody else and better, cheaper and award-winning better than anybody else. And we're going to come in and we're going to have the foresight to do it. And I just want to give you an example. Obviously, we're raising money for a film shoot today, but because I believe in the nimble and digital, we haven't been sitting on our hands. And we've been looking at other things we could do in the meantime. So one thing is for our challengers that are trying to flip seats that are first-time candidates, we are trying to create some name ID around them. We've made a 6-second name ID video for each of them. The idea is we are going to have so many voters out for the presidential, but if they don't know Ricky Hurtado's name, they may not check him at the bottom of the box. I want to right now be pushing that out in his district because he has no platform. He's not an incumbent. The second thing that we've done is Amy Steele, who's running for North Carolina House, I'm going to show you her video. We did an in-depth interview with her, scripted a voiceover for her to do, and then told her powerful story through photos. So I will show you that now.
My story starts like so many others. As a little girl who grew up poor, I moved from Army base to Army base and was raised by my grandmother, who worked as the help for local white families. Even when times were tough for us, she taught me to always help others. So that's what I used my quality public school education to do. Lift myself from poverty, become a teacher, and then a principal, so I could keep helping others, just like my grandmother taught. I even married the man who proudly leads my church as our pastor and was able to raise a family of 5 right here in North Carolina. I've never forgotten where I came from or how education lifted me to my full potential. That's why I'm running for Statehouse. Our class sizes are too big. Teacher pay is too small, and the rules are being made by people who never step foot in a classroom. Our kids need a voice fighting for them in Raleigh. They deserve a real shot at success, no matter their zip code or their circumstances in life. So one day they can proudly tell their stories, just like I'm telling mine.
So that's Amy. And my final word is that you just have my word that we are going to be nimble. Whatever happens, we are going with the flow of this pandemic. Governor Cooper has opened to phase 2. My plan is to try and get in there in early June and do the film shoot. But if we cannot do a film shoot, we will adapt and we will make ads like you just saw with Amy's. We have another ad we're working on, which will be ready the beginning of this week, and I will share with all of you. But we've got one of our candidates filming direct to camera with 2 different cameras and the whole thing. Know that we will be innovating and will be ahead of anyone else in terms of trying to figure a workaround. But I thank you for your time and letting me talk much longer than I should have. If you can't tell, I'm very passionate about this, and thank you for listening.